Well, David, we are right at the hour, and I know we want to be cognizant of everybody's time. So if you will go ahead and get us started, and we'll go from there. But thanks again to everyone for being with us today. And before David starts, I do want to thank our leadership level funding partners who are shown on the slide, and of course all our funding partners who support TATT at the top and the work that we do. And David, I'll turn it over to you, and you can welcome and introduce our featured speaker.
Absolutely. Happy to do it. Thanks, Dean. And good afternoon to everyone, particularly to Dr. James Chappell, who has agreed to give us a few minutes, I think about 30 minutes of his time, kind of talking to us about what he has, his new role with SC Bio as the Chief Executive Officer. He came on board, it looks like November of 21, so probably starting to figure it out a little bit. Has a background in economic development with Louisiana. Go back in his education, and for those of you who care about this sort of thing, he is a Clemson Tiger. So we are glad to have you back in South Carolina and in the capacity that you're in. Interestingly, James, I have had this sitting on my desk for about a week, and this never works out well for people, but this is the summer edition, the July-August edition of SC Biz, talking about all the good things going on across the state. And you are featured here, and so is the life sciences industry. And there's some really interesting information that shares how South Carolina is outpacing some of our neighboring states. And so I'm thinking probably a few of your comments might touch on that and talk about how we keep the foot on the gas, so to speak, as it relates to that. But we're really grateful to have you here. As you probably know, the 10 at the top name refers to the 10 counties at the uppermost part of the state. I know your role is statewide, but for the most part, you've got the 10 counties here represented on this call. But we're glad to have you, James, and I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. And you're right, we'll talk about some of those things. I could have just shared the article and left it there, but going to share a lot that was in that talk. And there really is so much happening in the life sciences industry. And one that I wanted to step back that most of you probably know, but just to define life sciences, because it's not a term we throw around a lot. And I've had people who are kind of in the industry say, well, what is life sciences? And it really is just a broad umbrella term that kind of captures everything related to living organisms. So pharma, biotech, medical devices, bioag, if it's a living organism in the study of it, life sciences. And that's at SC Bio, that's what we're focused on. So anything in that realm, we want to help grow and help foster in South Carolina. So today, I hope that there's a lot of information out there. There's the articles, and we get great press, but hopefully the people leave here today as excited about all the growth that's happening. Hopefully I convey all that's happening in the upstate, but also across the state. And just as importantly, the opportunity that we have. We've had this great growth, but we're at a really interesting time, I think, for South Carolina, and an opportunity to go even further with this. So that's what I hope I can convey today if I do a good job speaking. And so I think we can go to the next slide. And you covered a lot, and not to belabor the point, but I am originally from South Carolina. I grew up in Columbia, went to Irmo, then split to Dutch Fork in the second graduating class, went to Clemson, and I played football at Clemson. So I'm a deep orange Tiger fan. Then went off and got my PhD, went to Baton Rouge to the other Tigers, and went to LSU. Got my PhD there studying cell biology, cell death, and then did a postdoc at Harvard. Took a pretty hard right turn when I was in Boston and got into the management consulting industry, Boston Consulting Group and others. I went to Boston Consulting Group program. Recruits people from the hard sciences and say, we can teach you the business side. We want your problem solving skills. I really enjoyed that. And then took not quite as big of a turn as it seems, but ended up recruited back to Louisiana, working for Louisiana Economic Development, which is the Commerce Department equivalent in Louisiana. there was at the time, Stephen Moray, who's now gone on, he was in Virginia and now has moved on from there. He was an ex-McKinsey consultant and had a lot of consultants there. So I ran what I call an internal strategy and consulting group in Louisiana for the state, and then had a lot of focus on entrepreneurship as well. And so when this job came open with SE Bio, it really was the kind of perfect marriage for me. It combined my background with science and then also growing industries and economic development. And it was a chance to come back to South Carolina. And I think we go to the next slide. But I always have to add a caveat is that when I first got the call, I was pretty skeptical because I was here. And I left South Carolina in 2002. I was in the science area. And there wasn't much of an industry to speak of, really. And so I thought, well, I'm not ready to kind of go to an organization that's kind of in name only. And yeah, we're going to try, but not have a real ability to make an impact. And I had other opportunities to move other places. And as you see, those are my two kids. I have an almost 8-year-old in a couple of weeks and an almost 4-year-old. They both have birthdays into July and beginning of August. And so I had kind of two criteria. Is that it had to be a place where I could do real work and there's exciting things happening. And as I said, at first I was a little skeptical of that, but as I started looking, I realized, well, a lot has changed since I left. South Carolina has tremendous momentum. And on top of that, SE Bio has tremendous momentum. I saw what the current team was doing with Aaron and Carla and Sam and Margaret since I've gotten here, and Sam Conduras of how well he had grown the organization. And so it checked that box. And then Greenville, that part was a no-brainer. I mean, being from Clemson, being from South Carolina, I still have friends here, and it tracked the success and the growth of the upstate because I wanted to come to a place where I felt like it could be a final landing spot where my kids would have opportunities with great schools and a great community and everything else. And on top of that, one of the reasons why this job is so important is, once again, that picture of my kids. I want them, if they choose to, and whether that's in the life sciences or in some other industry, because I think we all grow together, where they have the opportunity to stay here and to go to school here and to have a career here and don't feel like they need to go to California or go to Boston or go to Raleigh or the Research Triangle or anywhere else to get that high quality career opportunity and to work for an innovative company. So that's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about what we're doing today and all the possibilities and all the growth that I'm going to touch on today. So I think we can move to the next one. And so what I thought would be kind of interesting, a lot of this backbone of this presentation is one that I recently gave at a very big international conference in San Diego, Bio International. And I kind of went through, we had a breakfast with a lot of executives, a lot of growth stage companies. And I thought, well, let me start with what I think people know in South Carolina. And as I was talking to Sam Patrick, I said, I think a lot of it's actually the same for our local group. I think they're more educated on what's happening, but I think there's some similarities. So it's certainly not exactly the same, but the backbone is the same. So I kind of started at that. What do people know about South Carolina? I think everybody knows about our FDI and certainly people on this call and the fastest growing state and the friendly business climate and all that. I think that's what we're known for and we should continue to leverage that. And I think we can go to the next one. And then obviously for this next slide, I know that I'm preaching to the choir, but everybody knows about the tremendous success we have in manufacturing, BMW, Michelin, Boeing, and Volvo. And even that, as people on this call, and as I remind, when I left South Carolina, that was just started. BMW was here. Michelin's obviously been here a while, but South Carolina was not the juggernaut for manufacturing that I think it's known for today. When I graduated from Clemson and moved away. And then on the next slide, what some people may know, but I think surprises people is the cluster and the expertise that we have on the bio manufacturing side. When you start to put these logos together, even when we put this together was when I knew individually, I thought, wow, this isn't all of them. But as we all know, Arthrex is presence in Anderson, and you have Thermo Fisher in the lower part of the state, and Zeus and PAI here in Greenville, and Cardinal Health and Abbott up in Liberty. We have a real cluster, Charles River in Charleston, across the state. We're a real heavy presence and heavy player, and I think a lot of people know that, but I don't think that people out of the state realize what kind of momentum we have and the big name brands and all the jobs that it creates. So I think that's one that's a little bit news for people, and that we need to spread that message a little more. And so if we go to the next slide, and this one I realized the key the logo, the indicators of the bar colors has gotten removed, but I don't think anybody realizes the amount of growth and the impact of the jobs. We have almost 90,000 jobs related to the life sciences industry in South Carolina. So blue is what it was in 2017. Green is the growth we've had from 2017 till now, and yellow is that gray is that total ecosystem report. So that whole ecosystem support. So 90,000, just under 90,000 jobs are related to life sciences in South Carolina. And just as impressive, and that David alluded to, if we go to the next slide, that the growth that we have is just off the charts right now. Over the past several years, we've had an annual growth rate of 8.1% in the life sciences industry in South Carolina. That is 2 times as fast as the average in the Southeast, and almost twice as fast as even North Carolina, and 2.5 times faster than Georgia, Tennessee, and Alabama. And this is all federal data. This is not any games we're playing with the data. This is Joey Van Nessen ran this report for us. And so, as I say, even the most bullish of us, I don't think expected to see this number at our growth rate over the past 5 years. So we are blowing it out of the water when it comes to annual job growth. So if we go to the next slide, and I don't think anybody realizes this. As I had several meetings in San Diego, everybody I showed this slide to, their eyes kind of widened and they raised their eyebrows. We have over 1,000 life science companies across the state, and you can see the real clusters that are forming. In the upstate is where it's the most dense, and then in Columbia and Charleston as well. So it's really impressive the amount of growth. And this was just, I believe, a few years ago, the 600 companies. And so the proliferation of this industry is just, as you see from the jobs, as you see these dense clusters generating around the different regions of the state, it is really impressive, and I can tell you it's catching the attention of influencers outside of the state. It was very well received when I presented it, and people were very surprised to see it. So, and then if we move to the next slide. The other thing that I think that we can do a little more of, and I think sometimes even as a state we undervalue, is the research and the colleges and universities that we have in the state and the things they're doing around the life sciences. So there was one ranking recently that Clemson biology is top 8% in the U.S. for biology programs. And we know the bioengineering and engineering of Clemson is well known. I think we all know about South Carolina and the International Business School being ranked #1 for so long. And obviously not upstate, but as Cecilia from SyncMD actually stated that because of South Carolina size, we're one kind of bio cluster or bio corridor. So for us, which is a unique advantage, while this is an upstate focus, the whole state matters. And so MUSC is a top 30 medical school, one of only, I think, 25 or 26 NCI federally designated cancer centers in the U.S. They rank number in the U.S. News Report 14 for ENT care, 31 for pediatric cancer, number 4 for pediatric cardiology. And so there is a tremendous amount of research and talent and startups that are spinning out of all of these universities. And so we need to harness that and spread that message more to make sure that people realize it and say, wow, I want to be a part of that. I want to partner with Clemson, South Carolina, MUSC, or even our smaller colleges as well, because there's good stuff happening there as well. So if you move to the next slide. And so I think too, what people don't realize as much, I showed the impressive biomanufacturing stat across the state. And what to me is just as exciting, and where I talk about the opportunity we have as a state, because of our more recent growth in the life sciences, we have a whole wave of growth stage companies, early stage, but even more than that, the growth stage where they, these are what I call kind of this logo I'm showing you now, Series A, Series B kind of funding stage, so well-funded, lot of employees and growing rapidly. And so probably most of you know, some of these companies, Remedy, have gotten a lot of press. They're in the same magazine that we were just talking about. We just talked about their partnership with Clemson. I think President Clements gave them credit for saving Clemson's football season because they were able to do so many COVID tests. So they are a very innovative digital health company that uses blockchain and just has all kinds of capabilities on testing and clinical trials and everything else. So they're based in downtown Greenville. TATT, which is a really interesting oncology testing company. They use 3D models, so you can see how drugs will actually interact in a real environment, not just a cancer cell on a plate by itself, but how does the drug work if all the other natural cells in the 3D environment are there as well. You may have seen them in the news because they've just moved into Main Street Labs, which is a very unique, one of the few downtown biotech life sciences centers in the country. Cambridge is really the other big one that comes to mind. But TATT needed to expand, and we're really excited about Main Street and the Hughes development team that is turning that building into a biotech hub. And so that whole building will be full of TATT now, taking up several floors, and other biotech and life sciences companies in South Carolina. So there's another one that just has tremendous potential and really cool technology in the oncology space. Xylo, another upstate one, and I'll kind of move through these quickly, but really interesting where they have a bead that will go into the skin. You can put a active ingredient for a drug and it can slowly release. So now you can have more effective treatment where you can rub it in a cream or other things and treat things. And the wound care, erectile dysfunction, pain relief, there's all kinds of capabilities with Xylo and other upstate companies. Secor is one that we were so excited about that we didn't know about. They're another downtown Greenville growing like crazy company that we just discovered a few months ago. And they're kind of busting at the seams. They're growing so fast. They have a medical device that delivers insulin. It's kind of the size of a Band-Aid, and it fits on your abdomen, under your clothes. And so what they found is a lot of people with diabetes, they don't want to give insulin shots without the dinner with friends, or if they've got kids in the car, and last thing you want to do is roll up your sleeve and start injecting things into your arm when your kids' friends are in the car. So people miss their insulin dose. So this sits on your abdomen, you click 2 buttons, and it gives you the right doses of insulin. So really exciting company, downtown Greenville. SyncMD over in Anderson came from Seattle. They're another digital health company. Elastrin is based on Clemson technology. Sequel is in Charleston. They're another one, dermatology and wound care coming out of MUSC. So we have this whole wave of these exciting companies that we as a state and we as SC Bio need to foster and make sure that they have the opportunity to grow and succeed. And I like to point out that a lot of these too, I mean, we're not talking about companies with guys who guys and girls who don't have experience in the space. SyncMD moved from Seattle. They kind of looked at the best opportunity and landed on South Carolina where they thought they could grow. They have former Microsoft employees, Fred Hutch employees, world talent. Remedy moved from the Research Triangle, have Duke connections. Kyatex out of Clemson. Xylo, their founders out of San Diego. And if you look at their founders, it's a who's who of ex-consultants and Harvard Business and everything else. So these are real innovative, talented groups that we've got sitting right here at home. And to be clear, this is just a few logos. I mean, I could spend a whole presentation on this alone, but I just picked a few, most of them in the upstate. So we're there. We're on the precipice of a major change in South Carolina on innovative life sciences companies, and so we need to do all we can to help grow that. So next slide. And so some of it is, and I guess to finish that thought is, when you go back and you think about that map, you think about we've had success in Columbia. We have a nephron that is moved from Orlando, but almost a homegrown company that's now thousands of people. And we have examples like that. Vicor in Charleston is another one. Polymed is one in the upstate that has grown a great deal. So if you think about it, if we can take that slide that I just showed you, and as a state work really hard in SC Bio, and this will segue into kind of our focus, if we can turn a few of those in every region from a well-funded, high-growth company into a 200, 300, 400,000, 2,000 company, which can be done. And like I said, we've seen it with Nephron, we've seen it with Polymed. Now you start to really, really build those clusters because we have the anchors, but they just become, their gravity becomes even more where people want to locate next to them and people spin out from there. And it only takes a couple in each region. And we hope it's more than that. And we think that these companies will be more than that. But it only takes a couple, and that's our best shot. We're going to continue, and we work closely with Commerce and Upstate Alliance and GADC and everybody else to recruit more companies here. That's important. We'll continue to do it, and I think we're having success there too. But if we truly want to grow and to be that new epicenter of life sciences, that new geographic hub, which is our goal, which is a big goal of mine, homegrown companies who have ties to the state and don't want to leave and are here for a reason and have that network, that's how you do it. And we're getting there. But we need to continue to focus on that and make sure that the Kiatex and the Remedies and all those that I listed and all the others are the next household name when it comes to life sciences. So I've kind of touched on it. I kind of, took a little my own conclusions. But what are we doing at SC Bio? What is our role? And I think most of you know we're a membership organization. We have about 150 members. We also, as I mentioned, work very closely with the state, with the hospital association, with our universities, our economic developers on growing the industry. So we want to focus on anything that we can do to help grow our current companies, bring more companies here, and anything we can to become that new leader in life sciences. And we're well on the way. And so on this slide is really those key areas. Starting from the bottom, and Sam Patrick, as most of you know, already does a fantastic job with this. We brought Margaret Butler, who I think I saw on the call just a couple months ago, who's doing a fantastic job. We need to tell that South Carolina story. We need to make sure the things I'm telling you today, that as many people as possible understand that. And there's a couple of different audiences. One is the people on this call today. The more people in the state understand the opportunity, the more we can make sure that we have policy crafted, that we have workforce initiatives, we have all these things that people want to kind of rally around to make sure that we help grow the industry. We also have a huge audience, and we're working hard on this outside of the state. As I said, when I showed people that 1,000 companies across the state, people from Boston, people from California, people from Europe, they raised their eyebrows and were like, okay, I didn't know South Carolina had an industry. So we need to make sure that we're aggressive in getting out all those good stories. So we get in their consideration set and they think about that next partner for sponsored research, that they think of Clemson, South Carolina, or MUSC, and they think about that expansion. When some of them have a lily pad approach, where they want to put small offices kind of around the Southeast and have a Southeast hub. We want them to think of South Carolina. We have all that low cost of business. We have the business friendliness to say, look, North Carolina is really saturated. Come to South Carolina. We've got the talent. We've got all this happening. Come here. But they have to know the story. So we're working really hard, and I think making a lot of progress on that. You'll see from us soon. We've completely revamped our website. We have a new logo coming. A lot of new strategies. As I mentioned, Margaret is doing a fantastic job of coming up with strategies and increasing our reach across the world to let people know about all the successes that we have in South Carolina. Next, I won't go too far into it because I've covered most of it, innovation and entrepreneurship. That's where we're going to have most of that success. Those homegrown companies that we foster, that we nurture, that we do everything we can to help them get over those roadblocks, get through those roadblocks, to grow into these publicly traded, big epicenters of life science. And so that's another one. We have a big focus on getting more capital here. We've invited a lot of venture capital. We've made a lot of relationships with VCs who, once again, may not know all that's happening here, to say, take a look at all these innovative companies. We're working on something now to send out to VCs, a one-pager for our most promising growth stage companies. So they get a good snapshot and say, hey, I want to learn more about that. I want to come down and see what else is happening and invest in some of these companies. And we're seeing a lot of success there. Obviously, policy is important. And then just our general networking. How do we get our startups plugged in and a network to help them with mentorship, to help them with partnerships, and anything else that we can. And that goes into the next one, partnerships. South Carolina, as all of you know, is so unique in that people are willing to help. And our life sciences industry, especially, everybody wants to grow their own, but they also have almost a philanthropic, they want to see the state do well, because they know that that helps them too. And so we have so many times when we bring companies together, sometimes us with a specific thing in mind, other times just organically at the events we have at our conference, where they form partnerships, new products, or just help each other out. So we're always excited to see that. And South Carolina is very unique in that case. And we've had a lot of success there in bringing people together. Policy is one that you have to have good policy, and it has to be geared towards these companies that are a little different than traditional manufacturers. They're not doing a huge CapEx all the time. They may not initially be starting with 500 people. And sometimes they're pre-revenue for a long time. So we have to look at things like our franchise tax and make sure we're not penalizing companies who are going to be pre-revenue for years and years. I've talked to a lot of people and have talked with Secretary Lightsey and the governor and others about an aggressive incentive that is focused on life science and maybe high tech to differentiate South Carolina, to signal that we're very serious about this industry. And then last, the thing on everybody's mind, and that Aaron Ford and Carla Whitlock do a great job on our team, is workforce. We know with all this growth, we've got to rapidly grow the pipeline. We've done a few tangible things. We have the SC Bio certificate that we just launched, had our first graduating class with Midlands Tech, and working with several of other colleges to help reskill and upskill people in South Carolina who want to go work for a pharmaceutical manufacturer, a medical device. And so how do we get them those skills with a short certificate? So really, I'm proud of that work. I can't take any credit for it. That's purely Aaron and Carla. It was well underway before I got here, and they've just recently got it over the finish line. And also looking forward, we know that K through 12 pipeline is so important. If we want to continue this growth, we have to have a huge pipeline of talented individuals. And we found, and this isn't our research, but we've heard and believe that it's middle school is where people kind of get in those pathways. And so if we go to the last couple of slides, one thing we're really proud of is we've just had a soft launch in San Diego last month, the Rad Lab, which is a gamification of life sciences. We work closely with Skills Gap, who is based out of South Carolina, who has developed a life science app, gamification for middle school students initially, and it's geofenced, so it's only South Carolina. And you can go to the next slide, and I think there's a nice little screenshot of the animation. I had my son play it already, and he liked it. He didn't realize he was learning science, which is fantastic. He was sorting chemicals. We were putting chemicals in a freezer and moving them around. And the thing that's even cooler, so first of all, South Carolina is the first state to do this. So, and it will roll out to our middle schools coming this fall. Like I mentioned, we've had a soft launch. And I think what makes it even more interesting, because it's geofenced to South Carolina, we can have our prominent companies, the companies that I mentioned, the Abbotts, the Nephrons, the TATT, we will have, when the kid drives by Main Street Lab, it will pop up and say, did you know that TATT is here and they do oncology work, and you can be do oncology research and make $100,000 a year. Or if you're out and you drive by Abbott, did you know you could be a quality assurance person and make $70,000 a year? So they realize there's all these opportunities. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to who think in science, and even I thought this way too late. You become a doctor, you go and you work for a university, or you work for a big pharma company. And there's so many other options. And I think so many people kind of lose that, hey, I like science, and I want to be a doctor, and I don't want to be a professor. And so they leave it. And so this will identify all of those things that are happening in South Carolina. And there's a lot more that can be done with it, including challenges and all kinds of stuff. And to show people too, you don't have to leave the state. We have as much talent and as much innovative companies here, and it's growing fast. You can stay in South Carolina. You don't have to go to the Northeast of California or anywhere else. So really excited about that, and excited about all the things that we're doing there. And I'll just end it on this. Hopefully you see all the momentum you have. We're excited and proud of the momentum. But as I've said a lot of times, I think now is that key time where we've got to kind of push all of our chips in and decide, do we want to truly be a life science leader? Do we want to ride this wave and think, hey, that's pretty nice, we had some job growth? Or do we want to say, no, we want to be that next leader in biotech, in life sciences? Because I think we'll look back at this date the same way we look at automotive and aero now, where we think, okay, it was the late 90s, early 2000s, where we really became a leader in this space. I think we'll do the same thing now. We'll either think we missed an opportunity, but I think we have everybody on board. We'll look back at this time and realize, kind of in the history books, that the early 2020 is where South Carolina became that next leader in life sciences. So I'll leave it there. I could keep talking for hours and hours because there's so much, but happy to take any questions. And thank you all for listening, and anything we can do, any questions I can answer, happy to do it.
Great, thank you, James. And if David, if you want to ask some questions as well, and if anyone has anything in the chat, I know there's been some chat, but I haven't really seen a lot of questions. I do see one now from Courtney. Do you know how many people, organizations are currently using the app that you guys have just created?
Well, I think Erin's always a step ahead of me. She just answered, it was a soft launch. So right now it's really just more individuals and beta phase, really where we'll start, and by we, Skills Gap, in conjunction with us, we'll start tracking that data is this fall when we push it out to schools and get it implemented there.
So James, what I was struck by your presentation, which I think was really interesting, is how, the growth in bio in the South Carolina has really been organically happening for a while. And it seems like it's just been in the last few years with the creation of SC Bio and more synergy that we as a state are kind of recognizing, what we have, and now putting resources and energy towards not just organically kind of just growing it a little, but the plan, the intent of turning it into a major component of economic development and economic growth for the state. Is that a fair thought?
Yeah, it is. And somebody asked me before, and I still don't have a great answer of what catalyzed. I think similar to what you're saying is kind of what catalyzed this kind of more hockey stick projection. And I think it's a few things. I think you touched on some of it is our universities have taken it more seriously than not. I think they've gotten better at spinning out startups, at spinning out their research. I think just in general, the growth of South Carolina, you heard me rattle off all the people who've come here to start companies. I think it's just an attractive place to go. And as we know, Greenville and Charleston and some of our cities are growing. People are looking for that quality of place. So I think it's a whole host of factors. I think it's more attention. I think it's I think the growth of SC Bio. I think bringing those people together where they realize there's more of a community, where they realize there's a network, and a little bit of someone put it better than I did. They talked about, North Carolina is also overheated. And so I think more people are looking to South Carolina. It's a very similar geography, very similar climate. And so people are looking to South Carolina. So I think it's all of those things combined. But what is the true driver of those kind of 3 or 4 I mentioned? I don't know. I think it's all, somewhat equal.
Well, and you mentioned it, and I hear it with our organization and some of the founders as well, who said, if you don't have someone who wakes up every morning thinking about whatever it is, then that thing is not going to be, top of mind for anybody, and is not going to get that same level of attention. So I think, when SC Bio started, 6 or 8 years ago, I guess, the ideas, it really started to catalyze together that idea that we need to be thinking beyond just, the companies being here, but what can we do to help them grow and be better? And I think you guys have played an important role in that, as you said about the storytelling. I don't think you can really, people, you didn't know what you didn't know, right? So now that you guys have created kind of that portfolio of what is here, it's really amazing of just, to look and see what the opportunities are. So on that realm, I would ask, you talked about North Carolina being a little overheated. I know we've heard, anecdotally, people at times saying, California and all of that is no longer necessarily where they want to be in this era and world of telecommuting and being able to work anywhere. We're hearing in a lot of businesses and industries that South Carolina is a destination place in the upstate. We like to think most, specifically. Is that something you're seeing as a part of the chemistry there for the bio industries? And now that we've quantified that, we have a pretty good, base of industries and opportunities here, that the fact that you are telling the stories and those kind of things in connection with the technology innovations and people working from anywhere, are those things really playing into this opportunity for growth?
Yeah, I think you've touched on a few points there. One, I just met someone at our get together in Greenville a couple weeks ago, who is in Greenville and is with a very prominent, works for a very prominent biotech company out of Boston, but during COVID had the opportunity to move here and work remotely, and that's what they chose. Secor that I mentioned has a long history, and I think it'd be worth getting their leadership to talk and tell you their story, because it's an interesting one. Essentially, their CEO's story is similar to mine. He'd been in Boston and California and worked with the biggest companies, and said he has kids and said, I want to go where I'm comfortable and where my kids can live a good life. And he picked Greenville. Then he had the opportunity to be the CEO of Secor and said, why can't we do it here? And that's what we're going to do. Not only why can't we, and they are and are growing. So, and I think it all kind of becomes, like everything else, once you have some momentum and then the next guy can feel comfortable that they can live there, it takes that fear out of being a first mover. And so I always talk about, in my experience, there's almost nothing better than a logo slide. You can put some good logos and show that they're already there. Funny enough, sometimes it almost doesn't matter what they're doing. If you can show that they're there, people say, oh, okay. Then if Abbott decided they can be in South Carolina, I can too. And so I think we're at a really unique opportunity where South Carolina, and obviously the upstate is one that people are I'll say, just learning about, compared to a Charleston that everybody knows. And with all the growth and everything else, I think people are looking for that next place to go. And every time we add another piece of validation that you can do it from here, it gets easier and easier to get the next person. So I think it all works together, and that's where that momentum is coming from.
And that leads to the question of what can our local communities and governments and things do to help foster and grow. And if you don't mind, we have a real good question from Ashley asking about local governments and kind of what companies are looking for. When we're done here in a minute, if you don't mind maybe answering that question offline, you or Aaron or whoever would be able to do that, because I have one last question and then we need to go to the next piece, which is, so the question is, what do we need to do as a state in the next year to 3 years to ensure that we build on this momentum? You talked about, earlier kind of about, we got to make that decision of, how important is this to us, but is there one thing or one or two things that you can, just point to that these are the pieces we've got to make sure we are focusing on that will help us as we look to continue to grow this industry cluster?
Yeah, and I mean, once again, this could be a really long answer, but I think that somewhat is look at the model for automotive and aero and all of the resources and capital that the state and locals and universities put in to growing that industry, and replicate that for the life sciences. And I think we're getting there, but sometimes we and I don't mean that the money has to go to SC Bio, that's okay too. But for all these organizations, sometimes we have to kind of raise our hand and say, look, we can't be treated the same as some of these automotive and aero groups because they're further ahead. Let's replicate that. And I think the other easy one is policy, is make it as friendly as possible to, and that can be anything from revamping. Obviously, South Carolina has an income tax credit, but things that make it more attractive for these startups to come here. Just policy in general, incentives that are more geared towards high-paying jobs versus CapEx and necessarily big hires. And then just a strategy around it, which we've been working closely with the state and our economic development organizations to understand, where do we play? Let's not take a shotgun approach. Let's understand, here are the opportunities that we can really go out and sell the state and recruit. And then along that too, with the investment side, obviously the workforce, because that's the easiest way in any industry. But if you can show you're graduating the talent, people will find you and locate. So I think all those things. I think effective policy, just showing the investment, and just showing as a state every time possible, we are committed to life sciences. If there is a life science and a bio event, anything else, that South Carolina is there. And not just us, but the state and our local partners and everything else, so people realize, yeah, they're taking this seriously, and we should take them seriously and look at making investments there.
Well, great. Well, James, thank you so much for spending the time and sharing with us. And again, if you can answer Ashley's question, that would be great. And Sam has provided kind of some other, thoughts on things that can be done in South Carolina as well to continue cultivating. So again, there is an article on our website, and Lena put the link in earlier for an article from James. It'll be in our newsletter that comes out next Thursday. So James, thank you so much for being with us and for sharing the great things that you guys are doing.
No, thank you for having me, and always happy to answer questions and participate in any way we can. So thank you all for listening to me.
Wonderful. So Justine, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you introduce our resource updates.
All righty, thank you. Hi everyone, Justine Allen here. I have the honor of introducing, we're highlighting Oconee County today. So we will start with Dari McBride from the Oconee County Chamber of Commerce.
Hello, how are you doing?
Great, thank you.
Can you hear everything
Yes.
good? All right. I haven't done many of these Zoom calls, so I'm still a newbie at this. I appreciate you guys having us on today. really enjoyed the talk and living here in Oconee County, less than an hour from Greenville, very aware of what's going on. I did want to share a little bit kind of how our chamber came to be. We were originally 3 other chambers. We were Seneca, Westminster, and Walhalla. And in 2017, they combined to Oconee County. Just allowed us more outreach and more impact in our area because there are some smaller towns and municipalities in our area that don't lie within the city limits of our 3 main cities. And so they combined in 2017. And then, of course, everyone knows what happened with COVID and kind of shut down all of our programming. And so I just have recently come on board. I've lived in Oconee County for since full-time since 2018. I'm a water nut. So we had a part-time place here in on Lake Huey since 2015. And I actually from originally Asheville, North Carolina, sold our house there and moved down here full-time. And then I just recently took over as the president of the Oconee County Chamber back in April. But we are doing a lot of exciting things, tons of growth in our area. We have a new economic development director, Jamie Gilbert, who's doing a great job here. And we have also implemented some new programming. One of our things that we're trying to do is really be laser focused on, what our membership and what our area needs. So next Friday, we are actually having our first Business Bites workshop, which is actually a targeted longer workshop on staffing, because everyone seems to be having staffing issues, finding good staff, keeping good staff, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to be having that. And then we started more of a networking type event, Chamber Chatter, which is monthly. And we have had really good response from that. So I'm very encouraged about what's going on here. It was very interesting to hear all of the industry that's moving in. And I appreciate what the speaker was sharing about, people are now realizing, I think COVID did a lot of things that were negative, but I think it made everyone realize that, life is short and we want to live and work and play. Luckily, we have a lot of that in Oconee County, where we can, enjoy our life and be in a good environment. And South Carolina definitely checks all those boxes. So it's encouraging to see what's going on in our area, just all the way around. I mean, our population is increasing like crazy, which obviously brings more businesses and more opportunities to our area. So I appreciate the opportunity to share. I did write for the blog. And so there is some more information there. And I know Libby's coming up to give a little bit more information about Walhalla, but Seneca and Westminster both are growing too. And we appreciate the opportunity to share with you all what's going on. And we invite you to come and play in Oconee. And if you do, please stop by and say hello. Tons of things to do here, opportunities. And we just really enjoy where we live. And I think that if there's businesses looking to expand, definitely think Oconee and look at coming here.
Thank you so much. I know that it's a great change during COVID with people really examining where they would like to live. So hopefully you will continue to see more people and businesses moving in.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. If you would like, Lena put the link to your article in the chat, but if you'd like to put your contact information or the chamber's link, feel free to do that.
Okay, in the chat?
Yep.
Okay, I will do that.
Thank you. And next up, we will talk to Libby Embody from Main Street Walhalla about the Main Street program and all the neat things they're doing there. I'm going to run a slideshow while she is speaking to you. Thanks for coming on, Libby.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I've got some slides. They're just photos of what we've got going downtown to kind of give you an idea. I figure you'd rather watch that than stare at me. But I am Libby Embody. I'm the executive director of Main Street Walhalla. We are the economic development tool for the city of Walhalla. We're part of a larger network of Main Street South Carolina, which is about 31 local communities throughout the state. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with the Main Street program. I hope you are. It's a great tool. It's really a holistic approach to economic development that's based on historic preservation. So while I do have the whole city in mind, I do focus on our 8 or 10 block area of our downtown. And I hope you know a little bit about Walhalla. I hope you've been to Walhalla. If you haven't, please come visit. But we're a German community that was founded in 1850, and it's really the end of the line from the Blue Ridge Railroad and all of that. We are now kind of call ourselves the Main Street to the mountains, but it's a really unique place. We have lost a lot of our historic buildings, so it's my job to kind of help preserve those while at the same time encouraging economic growth. If you want to go ahead and start the little slideshow, you can at any time.
If you I apologize, but you might be seeing the top and the bottom of my screen. It's because it's coming up in a little bit of a different way, so it'll still be the gorgeous pictures.
Okay, yeah, it's just pictures, so it's no big deal, but thank you. So our Main Street program is a little bit different. Some are full nonprofits, some are full departments of the city. Ours is a hybrid, which means I'm a department head and I work closely with the city. At the same time, we have our separate 501c3. So it means I have lots of bosses that I answer to, but it's really a great opportunity for us to leverage the funding that we do get from the city. We're funded by hospitality tax. So if you dine or have a beer in Walhalla, 2% of it is added to your tab, and we get 50% of that. So that funds my salary and it funds our programming, which is supplemented by outside sponsorships and community support. We are housed in the historic Earl House, which is, to me, is very fitting because it was lovingly relocated and preserved by a group of civic leaders over 20 years ago. So there's a large history of people who love our town and have worked hard to preserve the things that we do have here. We're in our second year of programming, and we're working towards the goal of full accreditation as a Main Street community. There's 5 Main Street communities that have accreditation in South Carolina right now. I came on board 2 weeks before COVID, so we started our program back in March of 2020, and of course, here I am, everything shut down. So it was a little exciting, but I'm glad that I was in place. We were ready to jump in. We were able to get some funding for our businesses who were having to close.
Uh-oh, did we lose her?
Oh, did you lose me?
We got you.
Okay, and that, did we lose that last slide? Okay, that's okay. But we have a large Hispanic community. We're about 35% Latino. So we were able to translate, a lot of that documentation was not translated. So it was really hard for some of our business owners to get access to some of that funding. So we were able to work with some people in the community to get that information translated. And then we found the key really to helping survive this COVID was to create some small outdoor activities. We're a very small town, 4,000 people. Our asset really is that we are located right at the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains. I think we're one of 2 towns in South Carolina that you can actually see the mountains from our Main Street. So during COVID, we had a lot of visitors, a lot of people coming from larger cities who, wanted to kind of work remotely. And I think they fell in love with Oconee County. As Derry's already mentioned, we just have beautiful outdoor assets. And so a lot of them fell in love, and kind of it helped bring our town to life. So we did have a little bit of a perk, if you want to call it that, from the pandemic. But it did get people to recognize Walhalla and see it for the gem that we all know it as. So, going up to now, we are working on some exciting incentives or initiatives. Our goal is for Walhalla to be the hub of that outdoor activity in the upstate and in Oconee County in particular. we are located on Highway 28, so you're literally driving right through town to go up, to kayak, to fish, to all the great things that are up the mountains. We have a world-class mountain bike park that's actually owned and operated by the city of Walhalla, so that's a unique thing that we are on ecotourism and creating that economic opportunity for the people that are coming here to visit. We're also building a greenway that's going to go around the perimeter of our downtown area. So we're working with the city on planning that. And again, everything we're doing is making sure that we're tying in and encouraging growth for our businesses as well. We've got lots of historic buildings that have just traded hands. I think we've sold 20 buildings in the last 20 years or 2 years that I've been on board. We've got an old schoolhouse that's being renovated into a historic or into a boutique hotel. So working with her to help get access to historic tax credits and navigate that procedure, getting it registered and all of that is something that a great service that we're able to provide. And then we work on supporting our businesses that already exist. We help them get started. We help them, access training with design services like facade grants and branding opportunities. And then we do host some strategic events in town. The last one we just did, we collaborated with Southeast Gravel. We had 200 or 300 bikers come from really all over the Southeast. I think 12 different states represented, and they did a 100-kilometer race up the mountain and back. Again, got them to start and stop from Main Street. So it was something that was really cool. So all of that is economic development. So we really focus on that holistic approach, everything from new trash cans on Main Street to permanent lights in the trees is creating that vibrant community that is going to, attract a good workforce for us, and in return will attract some of those industries to Oconee County. So Main Street is a party of one over here. It's just me. So we, like most of you probably, but so we lean pretty hard on volunteers. I think we had 61 volunteers help us last year, which translated to about $52,000 in free labor we were able to use. And then we, working to partner with our communities like the Oconee Chamber, Oconee Economic Alliance, Clemson University. We're working with them for some of our projects. So really that's how we make all of this happen. I think that last slide went quick, but we did open 15 new businesses downtown this year. And I'm trying to think some of the other stats that we've got going on, but there it is. That's helpful. I was leaning on that thing to help me with some of this, but you can see how the private investment. This is last fiscal year, so $620,000. So that translates to about a 26-to-1 return on investment for the city of Walhalla. When they invest in our Main Street program, we're able to take that money and leverage it. So that's about all I got. We've got a great Instagram and Facebook page, and I invite you to follow us on that. And I really just invite you to come visit and track me down. I'd love to walk you all around town, show you what we've got going on, show you the opportunities in Walhalla. We do have a great event coming up in October. October is a great time to be in Walhalla because we are a German town. So, but we do host a merchant market and craft fair that's a big event down on Main Street, and that's October 15th. So thank you again for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming on. It's been way too long since I've been out to Walhalla. So once it cools down a little bit, make a little road trip.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. I think that Lena, if she has not already, she's going to post some upcoming 10 at the top events for us. And then I will turn it over to David Field to say goodbye.
Yeah, we'll close this out. Thank you, particularly to Derry and Libby, great ambassadors for your communities. Thanks for the updates. To James, Aaron, Sam, Margaret, great job. Everything you're doing with SC Bio. This is a group that loves stats, and we love to see South Carolina whipping our neighbors. So keep that trend going in the right direction. We're proud of you guys. Take credit for it, by the way. celebrate that. And I think that all goes to sharing that story for South Carolina. And so thank you for sharing that story with us so that we in turn can perhaps share it with the people that we interact with. We're grateful for what you guys do and for all the support that everybody gives 10 at the top. We appreciate it and look forward to seeing you guys next month at 10 at the top, TATT Chat. And if not at a meeting or event before then. So thank you. You guys have a great rest of the week and a great weekend.
Thanks, everyone.